My name is Angelica Chapman Sykes. I am from Beloit, Wisconsin. Beloit is literally on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin. I have a background in video game development and Japanese studies. And I was
You gotta show it.
Miss Beloit.
Yeah.
So I use my pageant platform to promote diversity and inclusion in the video game industry. I competed for Miss Wisconsin, which is part of the Miss America. And last year was my first year ever doing pageants. I did
Okay.
4 pageants in 3 months. I did in honor of my older cousin. He was super into pageants. He was supposed to coach me, and I wanted to honor him in this way. My gaming workshops, I work with kids from all different backgrounds because when I was growing up in all my STEM classes, I realized I was either the only woman, the only person of color in there, or both in there. And also when I first started working at my first video game job, I realized that too and said, okay, I want to make the industry more diverse. And the best way to do that is starting out with kids from different backgrounds. Let them get this interest.
I guess before we get to the pageant stuff, like what was gaming for you growing up?
It all started out with my siblings. All my siblings are like way older than me. When I came along, they were like, who's this kid? But they had a Super Nintendo. So I would play that with my brother growing up. And then it wasn't until I was probably in 6th or 7th grade, I got my first PS2. And my parents, especially my dad, bought it for me. He didn't really think I was into games like that. It's kind of like the stereotypes of, oh, girls aren't really into video games. And when he got it for me, I got 2 games. It was Guitar Hero and Lego Batman. And I played that forever. Lego Batman is one of my favorite games.
All of the Lego games are quite underrated.
Yeah, they were so good. Even with my friends growing up, we would play in high school PC games all the time. I remember when my friend got the PS4, we played on that like all day long. I remember playing Little Big Planet. It was awesome. So my interest in video games has always been there, but I didn't really actually start wanting to pursue a career in it until I studied abroad in Japan. So when I was 19 years old, I went to Japan by myself, studied abroad there for a year. Didn't know any Japanese at the time. Now I do. But I was my first time away from home. And I remember I was just walking around Tokyo, feeling homesick. And I saw an arcade and I went in there and I spent probably all day there because this arcade was huge. I think it had like 5 or 6 stories. It was big. And I ended up becoming really good friends with some people that I met there. I had a group of friends from the apartment that I lived at where we would go all around Japan and try out all the different arcades. So I told myself, all right, if these games made me feel a sense of community there and making friends, I want to make games that do that. I want to work in the industry that brings people together. And also I started putting the video games I played into Japanese, so that helped me learn Japanese better too. So
that was going to be my next question. Obviously, that language barrier. And Japanese is not an easy language. You find in a community and a group of people to kind of help you along. How was that transition? Just learning Japanese and trying to pick up on the different cultural aspects of being over there.
in the beginning, it was a little hard. I think it took me about 3 months to fully feel immersed there. It got to the point I remember I was dreaming in Japanese and I hurried up and called my mom. I woke up, I think it was probably like midnight here. And I told her I had a dream in Japanese. Like I'm starting to understand. I was really able to get around because the first thing I learned was how to ask for directions, how to order food, and where's the bathroom. And I just kept picking up words along the way, going to classes, meeting friends, talking to them. I even traveled around Japan by myself. I was very ambitious. I went all the way up to the top part of the island, all the way down to the bottom by myself during my spring break. And yeah, I missed it so much that I'm going back. So I'm excited. But yeah, being in Japan was a life-changing experience for myself.
Your time being down there, how did that influence sort of that creative vibe that you were looking for now that you had been down there and kind of experienced sort of a different way of looking at the world and sort of probably looking at gaming, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so when I first went to college, I was a computer science major. Got pretty decent grades, but I just felt bored. I
Yeah.
wanted to do something that was more creative, and that's where gaming comes along. So as soon as I got home, I changed my major from computer science to media arts and game development with an emphasis in communication. And I also added on the Japanese studies as a double
Hmm.
major too.
Yeah.
And it was really cool just being able to be in class, make board games with my classmates, make little video games, just having that creativity just flow through me. And that was the main thing that I was seeking, to be able to be creative.
The pageants, and you kind of explained it a little bit, but kind of take me a little deeper as to how you even got there. I'm sure there were a bunch of steps in order to get there. How did you even branch to that?
Now, I believe this was probably 2021. So my older cousin, his name is Eddie Farr. He was like around the same age as my mom. So he
Hmm.
was more like an uncle to me. And one of the last conversations I had with him was, he's like, Angelica, you should do the Miss Beloit pageant. You should do a pageant. I'm thinking to myself, I don't even know how to walk in heels. I don't know how to put on lashes, no makeup. I have stage fright. Like, why me? And he said, look, it's not about that stuff. It's about being a community member, about being an inspiration to other people, about gaining confidence, getting these public speaking skills. So he kept talking it to me. I'm like, it's making some sense, but I've never done this before. I will only do it if he was going to be my coach.
Hmm.
We shook on it. He's like, all right, girl, when I see you, I'm gonna coach you for like a year. You'll have enough time. So when you go up there, you'll be able to win. Cool. And after that, I was super excited, thinking like, oh, like what am I about to get myself into? But I knew with
Yeah.
him it was gonna be fun. And unfortunately, about like a week later, he passed away unexpectedly.
Hmm.
And that was really, really devastating to me and my family. I
Yeah.
miss having Sunday dinners with him. I remember it was just such a shock. So I still had it in the back of my mind about the pageant.
Hmm.
And I went to Seattle to see my uncle later that summer. And when I went into the thrift store, I saw a crown and I
Hmm.
immediately hurry up and bought it. That was the first thing I saw. I bought it.
Hmm.
And I didn't tell anyone about my cousin wanting to coach me and told me about
Hmm.
the pageant. Then I started having more people come up to me, oh, you should do Miss Beloit. You should do the Miss Beloit. I'm like, what is happening? So going into pageants, not really knowing what to expect, I did my first pageant January of 2023. My first pageant, it was terrible. I was stumbling in heels. I had very uncomfortable shoes. During my interview process, I was all scared and stuff. But I just went ahead and I pushed through. My family showed up for me, and I told myself, all right, I'm going to do another one. My next one was about 2 weeks later. People told me, wow, like you really improved. And then my next one after that was about a month later, getting more people telling me like, wow, like we've been loving watching you go through this journey. You really every single pageant you just keep getting better and better and better. Then my fourth one was Beloit, my hometown. And when I did Beloit, I wasn't nervous. I meditated beforehand. I wrote in my journal, like I manifested it, like I was gonna win.
Hmm.
And I spoke out loud to my cousin and I was like, hey, please, please have your spirit with me as I go through this. And when I did Beloit, all I focused on was just having fun on stage. I just
Hmm.
wanted to have fun and just enjoy myself. And when they called my name, that moment, I felt like I knew I was going to win, but you have to tell yourself you're going to win. I tell
Yeah.
I tell everyone who I compete with, you got to have the mindset of winning, even if you don't win.
Right.
You got to believe it. So when they called my name, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And immediately, I just start crying, and people were so confused. They're like, why is she not happy? What's wrong with her?" It was because I wanted to see my cousin next to my mom. I knew if I would have won, like, I knew if he was there when I won, he would be running up and down the aisles, hugging my mom. They'll probably be jumping up and down. So when I was looking at my mom, I wanted him to be right there for me. It was just such a surreal moment. So after that, I had to compete for Miss Wisconsin. And I wasn't really, my goal really wasn't to be Miss Wisconsin. But I was like, oh, you know what? This is cool. So that was a cool experience through all of it. And I also had a pageant coach who helped me out because at the time the age limit was 25. So I said, all right, this is going to be my first and only year to do this. So I got to go all in. And I had like a personal trainer before, worked with my pageant coach, did a lot of work on mental because that's one thing she was telling me is all about in your mind. So you got to work on your mental health, your well-being. That was some deep dive work I was able to do while journaling all the time. And competing for the pageant, there's different sections of it. There is interview, which is private with the judges. It's about 10 minutes long. And they can ask you questions about your community service project, things about you, any political questions. Then there's on-stage question, fitness, evening gown, and talent. And your talent has to be 90 seconds. And I play the viola.
Oh, okay.
Everyone has to have a community. Now this is how the pageants and the video games get merged together.
Okay, here we go.
So everyone has to have a community service initiative when they compete.
Okay.
Mine was called Game Changers, Diversifying STEAM through Video Game Development. And it makes sense. You know, this is some experience I have being in the video game industry. My old job, I helped put together gaming workshops because I wore a lot of hats there. But I really was working with the community because all these companies keep talking about, we want to help with diversity and inclusion. And I helped put together this gaming workshop where the kids were able to have a behind the scenes look, breakout sessions, a video game tournament, and got to talk to game devs. We had a career panel, and that was a hit. So I said, I might as well turn this to my community service initiative. All the other pageants I did not win. And I believe it was because some of the judges did not really get the whole video game thing. I was getting questions about, violence and video games and gun control and all this. And of course, I have all my answers to back it up. But some people don't really think of video games can actually be an educational tool. That video games or even board games or role playing games can actually help kids be more social, being more interested, like fixing up their social skills, their hand-eye coordination, all these things. So when I did Beloit, I really was super prepared because I was like, all right, I already know all the questions they're going to ask me.
Yeah.
I already got this down. I already got it down. So when you win, I was able to use my platform as Miss Beloit to put together my own gaming workshops. I did collaborations with nonprofit organizations, with schools, with other video game companies, and it was really cool. I think I did about almost 200 appearances as Miss Beloit in 1 year when I won. It was really cool, and just letting them know, like, hey, even if you don't want to be a software engineer or an artist or a game designer, you can still work in the video game industry. They need graphic designers, they need lawyers, they need HR people, just like any other company. So there's a way for someone to find themselves into the industry.
I'm sure parents are like, hey, what is this video game thing about? Talk a little bit about like the workshops and stuff you've done. Like, what kind of goes on with these workshops? What are you doing with these kids? And what kind of goes all into it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have parents reaching out to me, teachers reaching out to me, even students online that are like, hey, can you help us out? Can you come to school or whatever? But the workshops really depends on how much time we got and what companies want to help sponsor it. But a lot of them, if it's something that's really, really short, like if I'm in a classroom setting, I'll end up putting together a presentation about myself and about the video game industry and about all the different jobs that are in there and kind of giving the students resources for them to further do their own research on organizations that will help them teaching them about esports, how they're able to get full ride scholarship to colleges for this.
Yeah.
So putting that stuff together has been cool. And then I did one workshop, which was with Career Tech, which is in Beloit, Wisconsin, and with Filament Games, which is based in Madison, Wisconsin, and it's an educational video game company. And we did this with all girls. I had some video game developers come in, and artists, uh, my old coworker who works in quality assurance, myself, and Filament Games also came too and did their own presentation. And afterwards, the girls were able to play a robotics game. They're able to build their own robot and learn more about that. That was a lot of fun. They got to
That's
learn a
cool.
little bit on how the game was made, and they really loved it that way. I've also did a cool, cute board game workshop with the YWCA for one of the activities. So, you know, the YWCA said, hey, we don't have access to a bunch of TVs and stuff for our family fun night. Can you think of something else? I said, bet. So we made our own board games, and I was able to play them with the kids. And that was a lot of fun for them to use their creativity. So if you land on one thing, one of the kids were like, oh, you got to dance if you land on this board. Another one is you got to guess everyone's favorite color. And if you get it right, get one of them right, you're able to move forward a couple more steps. And we're able to color it and everything. So that's how these workshops go. I'm planning on doing another one where it will have a little bit more of a structure for at least like 3 days, working with an organization about that, like a mini video game camp. So I'm excited about that. And then once I get done with that one, I'll learn and I'll make it a whole week. And then maybe I'll make it 2 weeks or a month or something.
Whole gamer summer camp. So like, is the pageant thing like something you're still pursuing, or is that like just more sort of like I accomplished that, it's time to move on to the next thing? Like, how do you look at that as opposed to gaming and your workshop?
So I won't be able to compete in many more of the Miss America competitions. It's because they changed the age limit again, which I'm really sad about that. But I will be able to compete in the USA pageant system next year. So I'm already getting ready, training for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But in the end of all of this, I'm just really grateful for all the opportunities I got. And I just thought to myself, I might as well do one more next year. I have all these dresses. I learned all these skills. I might as well try it one more time. You know, me and Miss Beloit last year, it was so many opportunities with me going to all these different events, meeting different people. I went to GDC in San Francisco, met up with some people from GDC when I went to New York. I've been able to meet people in other video game studios that see my vision. And especially you're talking about these indie studios that are popping up. A lot of them said like, hey, we need like an equity advisor. Hey, we need someone who can work with the community with us. And I've been like, I'll go ahead and take on some of these challenges. I even have nonprofit organizations reaching out to me saying, hey, we have these STEM camps and they're just super, super boring. We need them to be fun. Can you please work with us? We will contract you to help make a whole entire structure for us to make this fun for a week-long program. I'm like, all right. I can use some of my contacts with other video game companies that are in that area who want to do this type of community work.
How many conferences have you been to? Like, how is it going to these conferences for you?
Oh, I love them. My first conference I went to was called MDev. It's here in Madison, Wisconsin. It's a Midwest video game conference. I went to it first in 2020 when I was a college student. And I was shy, didn't really talk to many people, went to some talks, kind of felt a little bit out of place. But my next MDev that I went to was back in November of last year. I was a speaker. So it felt really nice to have that transition. I wore my crown, my sash, a whole entire pageant gown. I had a professional makeup artist do my makeup. It was cool. My talk was about the lack of diversity in the video game industry and how to change that. And I was really able to talk to these studio leads and say like, hey, maybe you should incorporate this in your hiring practices. Maybe you should post your job boards to Black in gaming, women in gaming, like gay gamer professionals. Just post it there because it makes sense if you're making games that for everyone to play that you have a very diverse team.
What's next for you on the back end of your pageant career and sort of expanding your horizons as far as workshops and all the different things? What's next? Do you have anything that you haven't done yet that you are currently pursuing? Or you got anything that you're looking at that you want to do?
This is a loaded question right here. One is to go to more conferences. I went to GDC for the first time, was really able to network with people and have people tell me, hey, I really like your cause. I want to try to help out with that. And with that, I was able to meet a lot of video game indie studios that were like, hey, we want you to stream our game. So I'm going to start streaming soon. I'm just really just trying to figure out all the things I like. So
Yeah.
I feel in this moment I'm finally living part of life that I wanted to live. I quit my old studio job. It wasn't really good. It was toxic, bad on my mental health. So I'm focused on being like an influencer, a public speaker, starting my own nonprofit, and doing just whatever comes my way. And it's nice because now I can travel different places and meet different people. I want to be sponsored by video game companies, streaming. I want Game Changers to be nationwide, even worldwide at this point.
Yeah.
So the sky is the limit, and I'm just ready to see where life takes me and really just putting out that good energy and doing the work that it takes for me to get to where I gotta be at.